Diep came home from Hate with more questions than answers. She found her mother, heard the apology, saw where she lives. But forgiveness? That didn't happen in one afternoon. Now Easter is coming, and James's mother wants to teach her how to make hot cross buns. An old tradition, a simple recipe: flour, yeast, spices, and a cross on top. Diep doesn't know it yet, but sometimes healing happens in the kitchen. Sometimes the hardest conversations start over rising dough, and sometimes you learn about forgiveness by watching bread transform. This is about what comes after the answers, about learning that forgiveness isn't one decision. It's 1,000 small ones, and it starts with showing up, even when you don't feel ready. The first few days after Hate are the hardest. Diep goes through the motions, makes breakfast, takes Nai to school, does laundry, but her mind is somewhere else. James doesn't push. He just stays close, brings her tea, holds her hand in the evenings, waits. On the third day, his mother calls. "Easter is next week," she says. "I thought we could make hot cross buns together. It's an old tradition in my family." Diep almost says no. She's not in the mood for traditions or family gatherings or pretending everything is fine. But Ni is listening, and Nai loves baking with her grandmother. "Okay," Diep hears herself say. "That sounds nice." Saturday morning, they drive to James's parents' house. Nai is excited, talking nonstop about Easter egg hunts and chocolate bunnies. James squeezes Diep's hand as they park. "You don't have to talk about it if you're not ready," he says quietly. "I know." Inside, James's mother has everything laid out on the kitchen counter: flour, yeast, sugar, spices, raisins, an apron for everyone. "Hot cross buns," she announces. "My grandmother taught me. Her grandmother taught her. Now I teach you." Ni climbs onto a stool, eager to help. Diep ties on her apron and tries to focus. James's mother walks them through the steps. Warm the milk. Mix the yeast. Combine the dry ingredients. Now, the key is patience, she says. You can't rush yeast. It rises in its own time. Diep measures flour while Nai adds raisins one by one. "Why do they have a cross on top?" Nai asks. "It's tradition," James's mother explains. The cross represents Easter, but it also means something else. It means we can make something whole again, even after it's been broken. She doesn't look at Diep when she says this, but Diep feels it anyway. They knead the dough together. James's mother shows them how to push and fold, until it becomes smooth and elastic. "This is the healing part," she says. "When you work the dough, you're working through things. All the tension goes into the bread." Diep presses her palms into the dough, hard, then harder. She thinks about her mother sitting in that small yellow house, about 20 years of absence, about all the birthdays and holidays she missed. She pushes harder. "Good," James's mother says gently. "Let it out." Stew after kneading. They shape the dough into a ball and cover it with a cloth. Now we wait. James's mother says it needs time to rise. While they wait, they sit at the kitchen table with tea. Nai colors Easter eggs in the corner, humming to herself. James's mother looks at Diep. "Do you want to talk about it?" Diep stares at her tea. "I don't know what to say." "That's okay. Sometimes there's nothing to say yet. I thought finding her would make things clear, but it didn't. I'm more confused now than before. James's mother nods. What did you expect to feel? I don't know. Closure. Maybe. Understanding, but mostly I just felt angry, and then guilty for feeling angry. Why guilty? Because she apologized. She explained why she left, and part of me understands. She was young and scared and made mistakes, but understanding doesn't make it hurt less. James's mother reaches across the table and takes Diep's hand. You don't have to forgive her right away. Forgiveness isn't a light switch. It's more like... She gestures to the covered dough on the counter. It's like yeast. It takes time. It needs the right conditions. And you can't force it. Diep feels tears prickling her eyes. What if I never forgive her? Then you don't. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. How do you know? Because you went to Hate. You could have ignored it. Could have pretended you never heard she was alive. But you got on that bus. You knocked on that door. That tells me something. What does it tell you? That you want to heal, even if you don't know how yet. The timer goes off. The dough has risen, doubled in size. They punch it down. Nye giggles at the satisfying thump and shape it into individual buns. James's mother shows them how to pipe the crosses on top with flour paste. The cross is important, she says to Nye. It holds everything together. They slide the buns into the oven and wait again. The kitchen fills with the smell of cinnamon and nutmeg, warm and spicy and comforting. Nui presses her face against the oven door, watching the buns turn golden brown. They're getting bigger, she announces. That's what heat does, James's mother says. It transforms things, makes them into something new. Diep watches through the oven window, the plain dough becoming something beautiful. When the buns come out, they're perfect. Golden and fragrant with white crosses on top. James's mother brushes them with honey glaze while they're still warm. Now we share them, she says. That's the tradition. You break them open and share them with people you love. She hands one to Diep. Try it. Diep tears the bun in half. Steam rises from the soft interior. She takes a bite. It's sweet and spicy and still warm from the oven. The raisins are plump. The spices linger on her tongue. Good? Ben James's mother asks. Really good. Nye takes a bite of hers and grins, her face covered in crumbs. They sit together at the table, eating warm buns and drinking tea, and for the first time since Hate, Diep feels something other than confusion. Not forgiveness. Not yet, but maybe the beginning of it, like yeast in warm water, starting to bubble, starting to rise. That night, Diep can't sleep again, but this time it's different. This time she's thinking about the buns, how they started as separate ingredients, flour, water, sugar, salt, nothing special on their own, but mixed together and given time, they became something else entirely. Around 2 a.m, she gets up and goes to the kitchen. The piece of paper with Mrs. Land's number is still in her wallet. She takes it out and stares at it. Then she does something she's been avoiding. She writes a letter, not to her mother, not yet, but to herself. Dear Diep, your mother left you when you were 9 years old. That was 20 years ago. For 20 years, you thought she was dead. You built a life around that loss. You learned to be okay without her. Then you found out she was alive. and everything you thought you knew became uncertain. You went to Hate. You stood on her porch. You heard her story. She was young and scared. She made terrible choices. She's been carrying guilt for 2 decades, just like you've been carrying pain. And now you're supposed to do something with all of this. But what? Here's what I know. You don't have to forgive her today, or tomorrow, or next month. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for. But you also don't have to carry all this anger forever. It's heavy, and it's taking up space that could be used for other things. Like watching Nye grow up, like building your life with James, like being present instead of stuck in the past. Forgiveness isn't about her, it's about you. It's about deciding that what happened doesn't get to define your whole life. Take your time, be patient with yourself. Like yeast rising, like bread in the oven. You'll know when you're ready. Diep folds the letter and puts it in her journal. Then she makes tea and sits at the kitchen window, watching the dark street. Easter Sunday comes 3 days later. They go to James's parents' house for dinner. The whole family is there. James's brother and his wife. James's sister with her kids. It's loud and chaotic and full of life. Nye runs around with her cousins, hunting for Easter eggs in the backyard. Diep helps James's mother in the kitchen, preparing ham and scalloped potatoes and roasted vegetables. You're quiet today. James's mother observes, just thinking about what you said. It's about forgiveness being like yeast. James's mother smiles, and I think you're right. I can't force it. But I also can't ignore it forever. What will you do? Diep considers this. I think I'll write to her. Not ready to visit again yet, but maybe a letter. That's a good start. They work in comfortable silence for a while, chopping and stirring. Then Diep says, "Thank you." For what? Chitunpe, for the buns, for letting me work through things in your kitchen, for not pushing me to feel something I don't feel yet. James's mother hugs her. That's what family does. We give each other time and space to become who we need to be. Family. The word settles in Diep's chest. She lost one family 20 years ago, but she gained another one. James's parents who treat her like a daughter. James who holds her through the hard nights. Nye who fills her life with joy. This is family too. Maybe not the one she was born into, but the one she chose, and the one that chose her back. At dinner, everyone gathers around the big table. James's mother brings out the hot cross buns they made together. They're reheated and brushed with fresh honey. These are special buns, she announces to everyone. Made with love by Diep, Nye, and me. Nye beams with pride. James's mother tears one in half and passes the pieces around the table. The tradition is to share them. She explains, half for you, half for me. Good luck between us. Everyone takes a piece. The buns go around the table, torn and shared until everyone has some. Diep watches this. The sharing, the connection, the breaking of bread together. And she realizes something. Her mother took something from her when she left. 20 years of presence. 20 years of memories they could have made together. But Diep took something from that loss too. She learned resilience, independence, how to build a life from broken pieces. She learned how to be a mother herself, not from watching her own mother, but from deciding what kind of mother she wanted to be. And maybe that's worth something. Not worth the pain, never that, but worth acknowledging. After dinner, Sahai tugs on Diep's sleeve. Mommy, can we talk? They go to the quiet corner of the porch. Away from the noise, Nye climbs into Diep's lap. Grandma said something today. What did she say? Oh, she said the Buns have crosses because broken things can be made whole again. Nye looks up at her mother. What does that mean? Diep takes a breath. This is it. The moment to be honest. Sometimes people hurt each other, baby. Even people who love each other. And when that happens, there's a choice. You can stay hurt forever, or you can try to fix it. Like when I broke your favorite cup and we glued it back together. Exactly like that. Do you remember what I told you when we glued it? Nye thinks. You said it would never be the same, but it could still hold water. That's right. When something breaks and you fix it, it's different. You can see the cracks, but it still works. Sometimes it's even stronger because of those cracks. Nye traces a pattern on Diep's arm. Are you fixing something, Mommy? I'm trying to... With who? Diep hesitates, then decides Nye deserves the truth. With my mother, your other grandmother. She hurt me a long time ago, and I'm trying to decide if I want to fix what's broken between us. Nye's eyes go wide. I thought she was in heaven. I thought so too. But it turns out she's alive. She lives far away, and she's very sorry for what she did. So why don't you just forgive her? And there it is, the question Diep has been asking herself. Because forgiveness is hard, baby. It's easy to say, I forgive you, but actually meaning it, actually letting go of the hurt, that takes time. How much time? I don't know yet, but I'm working on it. Nye is quiet for a moment. Then she says, when I'm mad at you. You always say, I love you even when you're angry. Maybe you can love her even when you're hurt. Diep feels something shift in her chest, out of the mouths of children. You're very wise. You know that? Nye grins. I get it from you. James finds them a few minutes later. Everything okay? Yeah. Diep says, actually, I think it is. That night, after they get home and Nye is asleep, Diep sits at the kitchen table with paper and pen. James sits across from her. What are you doing? Writing to her. To my mother. What will you say? The truth. Diep puts pen to paper. Dear Mama, I don't know if I should call you that anymore. I don't know what to call you, but Mama is what I called you when I was 9. So I'll start there. I came to Hatay 3 weeks ago. I saw your house. I heard your story. I listened to your apology, and I left angry. Not because you apologized, but because an apology doesn't erase 20 years. It doesn't give me back the mother I needed at my high school graduation, or my wedding, or when I gave birth to my daughter. But today I made hot cross buns with James's mother, and she said something that stuck with me. She said forgiveness is like yeast. You can't force it. It rises in its own time. So I'm writing to tell you this. I'm not ready to forgive you yet. I might never be fully ready, but I'm willing to try. I'm willing to start small. A letter here and there. Maybe a phone call eventually. Maybe, if things go well, a visit. I have a daughter. Her name is Nye. She's 6 years old. She's smart and funny and kind. She asked me today if I could love someone even while I'm hurt by them. I think the answer is yes. I think that's what I'm doing now. I'm choosing to build a bridge between us. Not because you deserve it, not because it's easy, but because I deserve peace. And carrying this anger isn't giving me that. So here's what I'm offering. A chance. Not for us to go back to how things were. We can't. Too much time has passed. But maybe we can build something new, something different, something that works for who we are now. I'll send you photos of Nye. I'll tell you about my life. And maybe, slowly, we'll find a way forward. But I need you to understand something. This is on my timeline, not yours. I'll reach out when I'm ready. And some days, I might not be ready at all. You'll have to accept that. Can you do that? To Diep. She reads it over once, twice. Then she folds it and puts it in an envelope. Are you going to send it? James asks. Tomorrow, before I change my mind. I'm proud of you. For what? For being brave enough to try. Even when you're scared. Even when you're hurt. That's real courage. To Diep looks at him. This man who has held her through everything, who never pushed, who just waited. I couldn't do this without you, she says. You could, but you don't have to. They sit together in the quiet kitchen. And To Diep realizes something important. Healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's not about pretending the pain wasn't real. Healing is about deciding that the past doesn't get to write your future. It's about taking back control, setting your own boundaries, choosing peace over anger. Not because the person who hurt you deserves forgiveness, but because you deserve freedom. Here's what I want you to understand. To Diep's story isn't about a daughter who instantly forgave her mother. It's not a fairy tale where one conversation fixes everything. It's about a woman who decided that carrying anger was heavier than trying to heal. And that's the lesson. You don't have to forgive people who hurt you. You really don't. Some wounds are too deep. Some betrayals can't be undone. But if you're spending your energy hating someone, if you're replaying the hurt over and over, if you're letting what happened 20 years ago control who you are today, then you're still giving them power. Forgiveness isn't about them, it's about you. It's about saying, what you did was wrong. It hurt me, but I'm not going to let it hurt me forever. Here's what To Diep taught me. You can build a bridge without crossing it right away. You can offer peace without offering trust. You can love someone from a distance while you heal. And you can do all of this on your own timeline. Not when they're ready, when you're ready, because healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel generous and open. Other days the anger will come back, and that's okay too. The point is, you're trying. You're not stuck. You're moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time. Like yeast rising, like bread transforming in the oven, like broken cups glued back together. Different than before, still cracked, but whole enough to hold water. And sometimes, that's all we need to be, whole enough. That's the lesson. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to keep showing up. Keep trying. Keep choosing yourself. The rest will rise in its own time.